Is Allison here, and today's lift up is all about how assumptions may be killing your opportunities, and you may be really frustrated in your life, and the assumptions may be the reason why. And we are going to dive into this topic. I'd love to hear from you in the chat box, whether you're here live or in the replay. You are more than welcome. I definitely still will monitor after, but the assumptions, the preconceived notions, and we don't necessarily even know what we're already thinking about the situations we're walking into. And so this is where self-awareness and getting so compassionately curious but with yourself to figure out, okay, wait a second, am I going into this because from a perspective in making these assumptions because of other people who have been in similar situations, or because of past experience with something that I did, and it worked out this way. So therefore, I believe that the past is the best indicator of the future, and therefore I'm going to apply the same filters to what was to the situation that was similar from before. And so I'm going to share with you a few examples of this that has recently happened. Coaching clients, I'm working with somebody on a project, and it's just like, wow, that's a lot of assumptions that are being made, and it's causing a lot of destructive stress and friction. And I'm like, yeah, but none of this future, it's not future proofing. None of this future anticipation, I guess anticipation is about future, has actually happened yet. But we're dealing with the problem as if it's actually happened. Okay, so let me tell you the story. I am working on this project, and there are two suppliers that are involved, and I'm in the middle. And this supplier A says that person is not calling me back, and they're like 10 minutes late for our meeting. And that's because their job description, people like that do never want to work with people like me. And she's not like, talk about gossip. I don't do this kind of drama, but this is an assumption that a person who does that does not like to work with me because they want to have control and they want to have say in how everything goes and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, look, as far as I know in my experience with working with the supplier is that she is exceptionally professional. I'm sure she has absolutely no problem collaborating with you on this project because we're all trying to create the exact same beautiful outcome. And by making this assumption and having stress, destructive stress, by the way, around a situation by assuming because past people who you've interacted with who had a similar role reacted that way to you, then what you're doing is you're putting a whole level of bullshit around this project that is completely unnecessary and stealing everybody's capacity, my own included. Because I just won't deal with this, right? Like I am a problem solver. I want to deal with what is the reality of today, okay? But if we have past experiences where deals went sideways or people were didn't think we were qualified or that we were good enough or that we, I work with tech entrepreneurs sometimes and it's like, okay, so, I don't have millions of dollars. So those granting people aren't going to talk with me and I'm never going to be able to get this thing off the ground. Well, that's a lot of assumptions, right? Like a lot of assumptions that aren't necessarily actually true. And if we live in this perspective of we're making assumptions about what other people think, what other people feel, how other people are going to act, how a process is going to unfold, and we don't actually live the process and deal with the reality of what's within our control today in a factual way, then we're just robbing the opportunity for it to unfold in a really great way. So because supplier A came at this situation that I was telling you about earlier from all of her baggage and making assumptions about this other person, then that actually ended up creating friction that was completely unnecessary. And ultimately what happened was that other person was just delayed because she was on a client doing a client thing and it went long. And you know what? She wasn't going to stop the call with a client to go and deal with this other situation. But there are other areas where we make assumptions about people. Sometimes people can be very vulnerable with us and share with us their worst moments. And then we can judge them and make assumptions based on their worst moments, as opposed to seeing that as a moment in time or a specific situation, and then seeing them for their full brilliance. Okay, so this assumption that people are the worst moment that you've seen them at can also kill an opportunity because you're not seeing the big picture. You're only muddied down in the water. Got a comment. Maya, oh gosh, great to have you here. We haven't seen you in a while. It happened all over. Look at recalls after COVID. Those are the people that are incompetent and they think that they are leaders because of positions they carry. Oh, now that's getting, pretty feisty there. Absolutely, it is. There's the whole piece there we could go into around incompetence, but that might actually feed into my next spot here, and I'd be curious your opinion. But there have been so many changes in how business operates, in the marketplace, in the supply chain, in what people can learn and the skills they can develop. We are not living in 1992. And so when I'm talking with people who are like, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. Sorry, obviously that happened. Right? And this is going to be tough. And, startups are hard and all of this. It's like, no, actually, that's not how it is in 2022. Now, it might be in certain aspects you may be bang on, and it's definitely great insight and perspective, but it's not the only way that something needs to unfold. And so I think that this assumption that the past and how things are done and this box that so many people are living in is the box that exists, and that's how the rules we all have to abide by. I think that assumption as a whole needs to be thrown out the window. Because if you're still operating and doing things the way you did them 10 years ago, 5 years ago, heck, 2 years ago pre-COVID, you're irrelevant. Sorry, I'm just saying it. Like, this assumption that your little box that you're living in is the way things are is like, you're not seeing the bigger picture necessarily. And obviously I'm talking about very specific situations, but I'm mimicking it all for you because I think it's universal truth. Not mimicking it. I don't know why I use that word. I think it's a truth that if you are still operating under the same guise as 3 years ago, whether even with, I'm calling it the great resistance, people do not necessarily want to go back to work, like into the office. They're still working. They don't want to necessarily go back into the office. Now, there's another contingent who just desperately wants to get there, and all they're looking for is some water cooler conversation and some connection and some commute time away from their kids and out of their pajamas, and to put on those high heels. Oh my gosh, not for long, please, it hurts the toes. Like, all of that. But if you are still operating under the assumption that we need to be in the office in order to be productive and to have a community and to, go back to the way things used to be, like, that's not reality in 2022. You are selling yourself short if you aren't seeing the bigger picture of stuff's changed. I've got another comment here. Believe me, I know about 8 companies. If they go to labor boards, those so-called managers will get their organizations to a disaster. I bet you got some stories there. It's just like the way things work now, if we're using assumptions of old models, it's not going to happen. Okay, hold on. You can not only call the people you can not only call the people you party with. I don't know exactly what that means, but I'm up for it. Like the assumptions. Another one. If you're an obliger, which I am, which means that you often want to help people, often to the detriment of your own. Okay, so it can be hard to set boundaries. It's easy to want to swoop in and save the day, and not necessarily empower somebody to figure out how do they deal with it themselves. If you have that tendency, and I think this is based as the 4 tendencies, and I think a vast majority of the population fall into that helper obliger category. We can easily make the assumption that someone else wants to have us fix their problem. Maybe they don't. Maybe they just want to vent. Or maybe they only want help with one piece of the puzzle. And we're making the assumption that they want us to take it all over. Right? And you're using up your capacity to do something that you're making an assumption that the other person wants you to do, when in actual fact, they don't even want you to do it, or they want you to do this little part of it. And so your capacity is being used over there when you really could be better using your capacity for something that is actually your responsibility. And so this assumption piece is it's showing up a lot in my life right now for a lot of projects I'm involved in and a lot of things I'm doing. There's some stuff behind the scenes that's not public knowledge yet. It will be, and when it comes out, it will be very, very, very big news on a national scale. So super excited about that. It's a little breadcrumb that you'll need to follow as we go. But I just see it, right? And while past behavior is a great indication of future results, it's not set in stone. We can change patterns. So when we start talking about the destructive stress cycle and stopping that, and just assuming, okay, I've got this project, or it's tax time. Like I work with a lot of accountants, right? And it's tax time. So we're going to make the assumption that I'm not going to have any time off. I'm going to be totally overwhelmed. I'm going to be irritable with my family. Like these are the conversations that I'm having often in January leading up to tax time with accountants. And it's like, wow, you're making a lot of assumptions about how this is going to unfold. And the thing is that when you start using these absolutes to describe how something's going to unfold, so future, I got to think of the words I'm trying to find, like future catastrophizing. Oh, there it is. Future catastrophizing based on your assumptions. Your brain has to do everything to prove you right. And so you're going to end up with this, a lot of accountants have tax seasons that are completely stressed out. They worry all the time. Their team is dropping the ball. They don't have the organizational systems in place. They're not getting any time off on the weekends. They're getting angry and irritable and all these different things. And yet I have worked with senior leaders in that industry who have had the experience of not actually having any destructive stress in their tax time. You know why? Because we put the systems in place and we stopped operating our lives based on assumptions that that's how it's got to be. It's powerful. On fire today, I tell you. I love this stuff. Thank you very much. I do love what I do. So I'm glad. I always love to be recognized for that, that it's, resonating, right? I just believe so many people are caught in this destructive stress cycle, and they have preconceived notions about how day-to-day is going to go. Like even walking into a meeting and going, oh yeah, these guys are, so, timid about risk or something like that, right? Like, whatever story you want to make up, but it's all made up. We don't actually know that they're thinking that, they might be primed for opportunity. They might have just won part of the lottery and are ready to start investing some money. You don't know. But if we make these assumptions and we don't get clarity, we are going to kill opportunities and our happiness and our ability to be in flow and all of those great things. And so my goal today is just to get you to start noticing. Start noticing the assumptions that you make about people, situations, yourself. Before I started doing 75 hard, and I don't know if anybody's following along in this little world that I'm living in, this is now my third round. So I did 75 days of, it's a mental toughness challenge. So you have to work out twice a day. One has to be outdoors. You have to read 10 pages a day, drink 4 liters of water, take a picture. Like there's a whole bunch of things that you need to do every day. And if you miss a day, you have to follow a diet, no cheat. Okay. Whatever diet you choose. If you miss a day in the 75 days, you have to start over at the beginning. Okay. One thing off the list, you start at the beginning. And then, so I did that for 75 days in the fall. And then I did a 30-day version in January that added on an extra 10 tasks per day. And now I am on day 21, I think, doesn't matter. Day 21 of 75 hard. Yes, day 21. So had I have made the assumption that, let's say 18 months ago, Allie, that's me, would have made, if I would have operated when I started the first round of 75 hard from the perspective and the thinking of 18 months ago, Allie, I would have, first of all, I used to roll my eyes at, not in a judgmental way, but that sounded really judgy, but I'd be like, oh my God, who would do something so ridiculous with their life? Like, who wants to work out twice a day? Turns out I do. Anyway, but if I would have used that frame of reference, I never would have made it through 75 hard. And like, for some of you, you don't think that's a big deal. For some of you, you think it is a big deal. It doesn't matter. It's like, we can grow, we can change our patterns, but if we live at this expectation that we're supposed to be the way we used to be, we're never going to be able to grow and reach our potential, and we are going to kill opportunities before they even get out of the gate. That's the way I see it. Let's go back over here to the chat box. All right, planning ahead is a must, but do not take anything for granted. Absolutely. Oh, thank you, Jake. And you know what? When we operate from a place of assumptions, the other thing that we do is we miss the opportunity to pick up on the nuance of what's happening in that moment and what the true opportunities are. And so this can take us out of the present moment. It can take us out of thoughtful observation. It can help keep us from connecting with people. Like, so I just challenge you, play with it. Right? What assumptions do you have about yourself? What assumptions do you have about other people, and assumptions that you have about how something's going to come to life? Challenge those assumptions, and you don't have to abide by them. You can change the game. You can show up differently and rock it. All right, so let's see another note here. In meetings, we go with an agenda and ready to negotiate and convince others about your thoughts, and get them to buy in. And once this is accomplished, all the others become minor details with a team of support. Yes, and even with meetings, like, what if you walked in with, here's what we're going to do, and was totally open to maybe that's not the right answer. Okay, so have an assumption about how somebody can help you. Let's say you are a tech company, you're going for funding, or you're going to an organization that you want to have support you. And you walk into that meeting with the assumption that they're going to introduce you to, this person. Well, maybe in the conversation, instead of making that assumption, you could go, okay, how could you help us? What do you think would be helpful? And they might come up with a totally different perspective than what you would know, right? Just being open to that. Anyway, these are my thoughts today. Notice those assumptions so that we can challenge them and we can show up in a better way and harness more opportunity in our life. Because assumptions are, just as I was saying earlier, catastrophizing the future before it even has a chance to be catastrophized. All right? We can't assume it's going to go bad. We can also, yeah. Anyway, oh, sure. When did I read that? I think it might have been one of Brene Brown's books where she was talking about how somebody had the expectation that things would always go wrong. And because they had that expectation, they were never disappointed. However, when you operate from that type of a perspective, what ends up happening is your whole juju and your experience is like you're psychologically and mental, like, and emotionally processing that future situation from that negative perspective. What a waste of negativity. Anyhow, I'm going to leave it there. I think that's a lot of ranting for Allie here today. I'm fired up about some really awesome things, but just definitely keeping in check about the assumptions and noticing how much destructive stress it causes in people's lives. And if you are not self-aware and able to put a bit of a cap on that pretty quickly, that can eat up quite a bit of your joy and opportunity. So anyway, hope you are having a beautiful day. I hope that you go, if you want some solutions on how to destructive stress your life, then I'm going to encourage you to go get those 21 solutions. It's a free email course that is really just 21 ways that I found to really take control of your time and to take some of that destructive stress out of your life. So that is my gift to you. And of course, like always, grateful for you being here. Please share, please like, please comment, and help me get these words out, because I think that it can be really, I hope it can be really helpful. So anyway, have a beautiful day. And until next time, may you stress less, do more, and be happier. Bye for now.